Hello.
Hello, hello, girly pops. My name is Singular Dubs.
My name is Gogo.
And welcome back to Allo.
Hello.
And the drink of the day, I am drinking a tea lemonade from Trader Joe's
Arnold Palmer.
from Arizona. Okay, friends. So Gogo here is a friend. She's an incredible person, fashion icon, great vibes, and also a podcast producer and a podcast host. So we are just interviewing her, talking. We're getting to know her a little better. We're going to get to know the ins and outs of the business. How are you feeling? Because you've been a guest on a couple podcasts, but how are you feeling?
Yes, I have. But typically, where I'm most comfortable is behind the camera. So it's fun to be in front of the camera. And it's always a good practice because, I'm constantly instructing people behind the mic that it's good to practice what I preach. So I'm excited to be here. And the vibes are also immaculate.
Very high. I'm also very intrigued to see you do it because I know in the back of her head is probably like, okay, this is how I would tell somebody to do it, but I want to see how you do it because then I'm going to copy you of if she's doing it, then I need to do it. But first of all, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know who you were to understand who you are right now. So tell us about your childhood when you were little. And I'm talking maybe tell me, I don't know, 10, 13 years old. Who was Gogo? Were you the class clown? Were you a cheerleader? Who were you?
I definitely think from 10 to 13, I was the entertainer.
Okay.
For some reason, I thought of that Britney Spears song where it's like there's only two types of people in the world, the ones that entertain and the ones that observe. But I was very into making my friends entertained, whether that was laughing or putting on like a dance show for them or making up choreography for us to do. I feel like I was just all about getting people happy and excited and going and maybe being a little bit of a menace to society. I was a little prepubescent as well. I like to say I was an early bloomer, not I was fast or anything, but yeah, I just had two older sisters, so I had seen it, learned a lot from them, learned the ropes, and was just really excited to grow up, have more freedom and more responsibilities. I was also very much discovering my personal style then. I think as my body developed, it was just fun to see how different things would look or feel on me, and then also how the world would respond to you. I think it was a big time that it was oh, if I dress or act a certain way based on my mood and how I feel, it elicits a different response from people, whether they take you more seriously or they think you're more fun, or I don't know, it was just an interesting time to learn about the world through self-expression.
And I feel like now your style is iconic. I feel like her style is a blend of early 2000s, hot girl with nowadays bag game always slay. Actually, as soon as she sat down, just for context, my bags are right in front of her, and she's like, "What Eddie Parker bag do you have?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like that's so niche." So I just wanna know. You just said you were expressing yourself through your fashion. Did you find your style very early on, or was that something that you have to struggle with?
Oh, so early on. I'm gonna urge you all now, if you don't already follow everywhere, but follow the podcast on Instagram. Maybe I can convince you post this on your story or something. But my earliest memory to just explain is the preschool photo day. Everyone showed up in ruffled socks, and this was probably 2001, or no, sorry, I'm being dramatic. You go to preschool and you're 3, right?
Yeah.
2003. So what was in style then? Pretty skirts and the
bubble
boys,
little things,
yeah, puffy
this.
shoulders. Thank you. Yeah, the
Yeah.
boys had bow ties on, and I was like, Mom, no. I was 3, dressing myself fully. I was like, photo day is no different. If anything, photo day is my time to shine. I wore a mermaid tail, heart sunglasses that were tinted.
I love that.
I had I think my mom forced me to wear a shirt. I was also very into
You're no, tank top.
yeah, probably wanted to wear a crop top as a 3-year-old. What the heck. And I was in the middle of the school photo, and no one told me otherwise, and there probably was some pushback from someone somewhere, but that was not in my memory and is not what I remember. I just remember feeling so good and so myself. That is my earliest memory of it was more, it almost was how could somebody else tell me what to wear when they don't know how I feel? It wasn't oh, I don't like what you're wearing, or this is a bad idea. It was just oh, I immediately want to wear like how my mood is. That like that's just such a personal thing.
No, I completely understand because I went through an entire phase, maybe like 9 to 13, where I wouldn't say like goth, but like hot goth, okay?
Oh my
Like,
god, I love that. I need to
g-
see pics.
oh my gosh. I had, girl, I was, like the really high Converse, like the knee high Converse.
Don't even get me started on those. That my sister Lauren would not let me get those, and
No,
I think I was
canceled.
grateful at the time, but I saved up money. I went and tried them on like the whole nine. Like I
But they
just
were
didn't pull the
iconic.
trigger. I'm so jealous of you.
When I tell you I had two. So one was black, one was like bright neon pink, and I would wear them like separate.
The way that would have matched my duct tape wallet so
Oh
perfectly.
my god, but like there was an era for like pink and black
Yeah.
and checkered, and
Yeah.
that was my era.
Yeah.
My neighbors thought I was completely insane, but I was like, I don't care. This is what I'm feeling right now, so you can deal with it. So do you feel like the people you grew up around were also creatives? Were they also like very free? Like did they encourage it? And maybe I'm talking more so your family than your friends and whatever else. Because like yeah, you're around your friends a little bit, but your family's like there always.
It's funny you asked that question because actually, as after I answered that, I was thinking, oh, like a big part that I didn't really mention was that a lot of my style, like maybe more so once I was in like middle school and high school, was like hand-me-downs from like my sisters, my cousins. I'm the youngest on both sides of my family, like by a lot of years, and most of my family is girls, so it was like whether it was them or their friends, like I was getting so many hand-me-downs that it was like this idea of like recycling and giving new life, and like how can I make something feel
Your
different or
own.
look different, yeah, my own, that like, oh, like, I played competitive soccer, but like didn't have to buy my own pair of cleats literally ever because there were so many extra ones. That it was like, how do you make something your own? I think was a big part of it. But in terms of being, I don't know if obsessed is the right word. I used to say I was a like shopping addict, but now I say I'm a recycler because I like most of the things I buy are like secondhand or like vintage, and then I sell something and get rid of it. So it's just like a very expensive recycling process. Very expensive recycling. There's much cheaper ways to recycle, just like throwing away plastic. But there's this idea of like a constant inspiration that like as I'm evolving, like I always want my outside to express that like my family does not relate to in the same way. Like it's very utilitarianism for them, or like it's more about like if you have a backpack and it operates in like 5 different ways with the straps, like my dad is so excited, versus like if I have a backpack and it has like metallic fringe, like I'm so excited,
Yeah,
so it's
I
like
get it.
so like the utility of it and the idea that like you can do so much with your clothes, or like so they're always buying and like learning about like cutting edge things and like sustainability, and like that stuff excites them, but it doesn't come from this like deep rooted desire to express themselves. And now years later, what's funny is they come to me for fashion advice. Yeah.
But that's like a win. I feel
Oh,
like.
it's the biggest flex. Like
I-
having your older sister like come to you.
Oh, big flex. I feel like with the self expression that is clothes and how we dress ourselves, and you start developing that little creative nerve inside of you. Do you feel like that had something to do with you getting into podcast producing and liking it? Or was it because you went to college?
Yeah.
Was podcast producing something that you wanted to do? Was it a pivot? What were the vibes?
So it definitely wasn't like something I dreamed of doing, but I think looking back, like it is part of like what I've always dreamed of doing. Two things can be true and not true at the same time. I was always into the creative side of my brain, yes, but like storytelling I think is what always spoke to me. So I think you can communicate stories without language, with language, visuals, clothing, like body language, like there's like the list literally is endless, that I truly want to explore all of those. That podcasting, well, there's like 2 parts of it. I stumbled into it professionally from like an accident almost, but then this idea that it's a new medium and you can make it anything you want. Like there are so many new ways to create stories with the art form is something I really love. But yeah, it was all an accident. I was looking for an internship in my sophomore year of undergrad, and I answered like the university Facebook group chat. Someone was like, my mom needs an intern. I met this woman for coffee, Shout out Laura. And I was so enamored with her sitting down, but I was so captivated by her. She essentially was like, you know, I just got out of my marriage and checked into rehab, and I'm in a new relationship in this new chapter of my life. And she happened to be married previously to the CEO of Nickelodeon, that like her life didn't look like everybody's. And so she wanted to tell her story actually in a memoir, and they were like, well, you need to, at the time, this was 2018, like have a platform, have a presence, go start a podcast or grow a Instagram following and like get back to us and we'll see about publishing you. And so she wanted me to help start and grow this podcast community, and we grew it to the top 1% of shows globally, and really she took me under her wing, and like I was able to be exposed to so many parts of the entertainment industry but also the storytelling industry, and then learn in real time from like this case study of like I was trying to tell her story. And I think no matter how powerful and amazing you are, which I think she's all those things, like you can't see yourself from the outside, and that's like a beautiful role a producer can have. And I was like, wow, I can get inside this world, this mind, in this case this beautiful human, and essentially help tell her story in a way that like nobody else can.
It's so inspiring listening to you talk about somebody in such a beautiful light. And you mentioned that you grew this podcast to the top 1%. That is insane. Like, that is
as
like,
a team, of course. I mean, and I learned so much from.
but you were a part of it.
Yeah,
You were a part of it.
there.
And I think it's not a secret, at least not to me, that you've worked in massive podcasts, this one being one of them, Talk to being another, Spotify being another, like
Shopify.
Shopify.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, why am I saying
No,
Spotify?
it's honestly, I mix it up all the time. It's funny even hearing you read that list. Like, someone would hear that and be like, "What do any of those shows have in common?" I think that's something that also adds to my work and life experience and just capabilities to, like, my ability to perform well in podcasting is because I've worked on shows that are very different, have things in common, and then like that experience helps me strengthen other shows with like, while this is a different audience and a different narrative, we can learn something from it and apply it to your show, and you probably never would have done it and no one would expect it.
When you were working on Talk to were you there from day one, or were you brought onto the project later on? Because I was just researching just to, be a little documented. Her first episode has like almost 3 million views.
So okay, I'll walk you through it. So I think the video went viral like end of June, and I was at a podcast conference at the start of August, so maybe like a month later, and I was speaking at the world's largest podcast conference called Podcast Movement, and the name of my panel was How to Grow Your Gen Z Audience. I am Gen Z. I've grown Gen Z audiences very large. I was very qualified to speak, and I was speaking at this panel, and after I got off stage, this gentleman approached me, and he was like, "Hey, like, I think right away he was like, are you taking new clients? Like, really liked your panel." And I was like, "Well, who's the client? Because you never, like, all work is not good work."
Right.
Which
I've
also
learned that
took
the
me
hard way.
a while to learn. That could be a whole other episode. But I was like, "Who's the client?" And mind you, so say the video went viral at the end of June. This is a month later, so still very fresh. He's like, "Oh, have you heard of the Hawktua girl?" And I was like, I've been waiting to hear her podcast. Like, not only have I heard of her, like, I've been waiting to hear her story, or really I've just been waiting to hear her speak in long form, which, as a podcast producer, to me is like either her going on a podcast in long form, but really I've been waiting for her to like tell her own story on her own platform.
Yeah, you just like see more of her.
Literally. And he's like, "I was really impressed by what you said. I'm actually, I don't think I've mentioned this before, like, publicly, he's on the sales team. So, like, he's by no means qualified to make content or hire people to make content. Like, he's literally just like, I caught such good vibes.
He's just like,
I had
numbers
to stop
there.
you." Like, and he's like, somehow we got to the point that they had a team of older white men and needed me pretty badly, from what it seemed. And there was one other woman, Caroline McDonald, on the project. But besides that, it was the two of us that were really the female presence and creative minds behind producing the show. And so they were like, how fast can we get this done? And I think by the end of the day, it was honestly one of those things. I don't even know if they were like, you got the job. It was kind of just like,
You were just there.
how can we like get this done? Like what are the next steps? And shout out to Gordon Firemark. I immediately called the only lawyer I'd ever met at a podcast networking event. And he's like trademarked as the podcast lawyer. And obviously we had met in like, professional networking settings, but I called him immediately and I was like, I got this, amazing gig, but I need like, I need you on this now. Like, and so he was able to get it done for me in time that I think, let's say I spoke on a Thursday, or let's say I spoke on a Wednesday, I was in New York on a Thursday, I taught on a Friday. Saturday, I was flying to Belfast, Tennessee to
talk to her.
I was going to film episode 2 in her hometown in her childhood bedroom.
Okay.
But I guess in a perfect world, that would have been her episode 1.
Aww.
But the one that was episode 1 was so amazing, and I think that it was like meant to be that like it happened that way. So like every minute of the day was used to like get that episode filmed. Like the timeliness of it was so important. Like Whitney Cummings was like the only woman on the planet to like DM Haley, like that was a celebrity. Like, and I know that sounds weird, but like when you blow up or go viral, like celebrities DM you, like that's just a normal thing. And like only male celebrities were DMing her, like support, like if you need help, or like here's a team that I recommend, or like, oh, you need a hairstylist, or like, oh, you want to talk, like people just like reach out. Even it's probably the same with influencers.
Yeah.
Like
I know I'm the one doing that.
Exactly.
Like when I see people that like start creating content, I'm like, here's what you do. Come to this event with me. Be my +1 so that they can experience the world. So like I can definitely see how like
it's the same way with like viral, people. Memes or exactly. So Whitney Cummings was just like this warm force for her that I think it all worked out perfectly that was her first episode. And then I went the next day, so we filmed very like close together in timing, especially for someone that had never been in front of the camera. She went to like nothing to we filmed these 2 episodes, and that's another reason why I wanted to film in her home. It was her comfort space, so it was like a good warm-up.
Well, I feel like she's very entertaining, and you know what, you said that you would have changed episode 1, but maybe it needed to be what it was, because not only did it blow up, this podcast was top 5% ever. Like,
yeah, we surpassed Call Her Daddy for weeks on end. We were in the top like 3, the top 5, and you're right, it did all happen for a reason.
Yeah, and I feel like when I was looking at the charts, she was there with, I mean, top 5, like Call Her Daddy was not there. Like it was like Joe Rogan, which I don't listen to, but like it was basically all men and then Talk to Us, right? And I was in awe. You were a part of creating that. When making something so big, so viral, and like you had already worked in podcasts for sure, but did you ever feel an ounce of imposter syndrome of like, what am I doing? Am I doing it wrong? And I feel like especially there's always comments, positive, negatives.
Okay,
how did you deal?
Yeah, there's 2 parts to the answer. So did I ever question myself or feel imposter syndrome? And I would say no, and that's the sign of a good team. So like having the support of, I mentioned Tish, Carol, Mike Denevi, like all these people, like it's publicly like known who worked on this show, but like I don't think it's said enough that like having that support was everything. So like when I came up with an idea, like it was like immediately, yes, this is how we can make it better. This is how we can make it happen even faster. That was like the type of support I was given, that it's, and still there was pushback, but it was like the type that would help things creatively. It was like, okay, how can we go deeper? Or like, how can we like get the audience more involved? Like those were always things I was pushing for, that I think having their expertise be so different than mine allowed them to like, they didn't question my innate like ability to do what I could do best, and I didn't question like theirs, and it was like the perfect blending. And then also I think like I have to be really emotionally invested to be able to be a good producer and do a good job, and so I was able to form a really close relationship with the talent, which I think is what makes a show also blossom, because like anyone that's great and good, like that's still one perspective. So like to be open from learning and sort of like, I almost say it's like a melding of minds that like, you know, a good podcast has a heart and a soul. And in the same way that like, you know, if your boyfriend wants to get sushi on a Saturday night, like, you know what your show would do, that like it's then it becomes like you're co-creating this like child together. Like Talk to You was fully all of our
Your
baby.
child.
And so then it
Yeah.
comes to the comments, right? You're like, someone made a comment about your baby. Like, so I think there's so many layers about it, because, you know, there's the layer of like, I'm creating a show for the audience, and like that's also something, thinking about your ideas of success. And like, you know, for us it was very audience driven, and so you listen to the audience and you have to take their feedback with a grain of salt, because in the same way that like, you know, if your friend wants, you know, what they want, like it's also your job to give them what they didn't know that they wanted.
And you need to trust that you know what you're
Mhm.
doing, that you're doing it well.
Yeah,
And I feel like also it doesn't have to resonate with everybody. I feel
exactly.
like not every product is for every market, and
Mhm.
it's fine. It doesn't have to be.
And I knew at the end of the day that what I was doing was like, I believed in it so much that like I could honestly sit down with every hate comment and have a
Argue
conversation
it.
with them. And I was gonna say argue, but it's not even argue, because like I know I have a point. Like I know what I'm right on, and I stand on my ground. That like I could easily dispute it almost,
Yeah.
like, or
Debate it.
debate it, or they would change their mind, because I knew at the end of the day, like the messages that I was spreading and what I was like sharing was like for someone that was so good, and I like it was all net positive. That it's like, if you're adding any negativity to something, like you're just adding it to something that's like end of the day doing good. And the second it wasn't, like, is, you know, when it was over.
I'm actually really, really honored, because if you don't know and if you haven't listened to the podcast, I highly suggest you subscribe. But Gogo is my second guest ever, and that was highly intentional, because I feel like it's just amazing to hear you talk, and it's so entertaining. And I feel like what you do is not something that is talked about as openly. And you mentioned like you had a really good relationship with the talent, and I think what you see in social media the most is like managers, producers, whatever it is, they're there to get a cut and get out, but you don't see as much affection with the talent. And I have girlfriends that are, you know, smaller, definitely like micro influencers, but they're getting managers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, why are you doing this deal? Like, this deal doesn't fit your aesthetic, it doesn't fit your brand, it doesn't fit anything. But I know it's because the managers are pushing it because they're getting cut. But you mentioned having an amazing team, and this team didn't let you feel imposter syndrome, right? Because you knew you had backup. With the team, without the team, what were some moments that were so pressure filled that your heart was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get this done or not? Or like scare that the people wouldn't really think about? Because, you know, we talk about like, oh, the camera didn't record, and like, sure, that's embarrassing, but like, you can figure it out. But what is something that the people wouldn't think of?
Yeah, most problems that actually keep me up at night or stress me, and this is all relative because I'm not saving lives by any means. So it is fascinating, but it's not like life or death. I think are like the people problems, right? Like, you know, mics break. I'm like thinking of that Carrie Bradshaw, like mics break, like computer chips are lost. But like at the end of the day, like what really is stressful is like the people of it all. Like at the end of the day, I'm getting people to say what I want, how I want, when I want it. And the only way to get that done is by making them comfortable enough to do that. Like I don't put words in people's mouths, yes, but like there is an exact sentence I want you to say. I won't lie. And so how I go about doing that is like knowing you, knowing your relationship with the audience you're speaking to, that mind you is not in this physical room, so it's in your mind, and I need you to think of them in a certain way, and then I also need you to react to the guest in a certain, or the host, excuse me, in a certain way. And I think something that no one thinks about is that Haley had not spoken to very many men in her life. You know, she was from a very small town. I want to say less than 1,000, definitely less than 1,000 people, probably in like a couple hundreds. And she was working at a spring factory up until, I was going to say the incident, up until the video. So something that involved her wearing her AirPods, or wearing her headphones, excuse me, and like testing the springs before putting them in the box. Not very social is what I'm getting at. That she had only really had in-depth conversation with a handful of men in her life that weren't related to her, and that were, you know, like grown men, established in their careers, and just like not somebody that she knew from family or from her small school and town environment. And she had gone to college for a couple years, but it's those in-depth conversations, right? We're talking about like 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, like
really getting to know somebody.
Yeah, and so I don't think people thought about the fact that she is now with cameras in front of her, having to carry in-depth conversations that are with people she's never met, but also someone that she doesn't really have a lot of things in common with, like a man and a woman, like having those intimate conversations, like growing up and like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and then like having an audience and like having reactions to that. Like that is something that I think people aren't thinking about, especially when you're as funny and as witty as her, that like that's half of it, and that people don't see the other half of like you're on the spot having a conversation with, in a lot of the case, podcast hosts have never met their guests before, and some prefer that and they like thrive with that, and then some of them are like, I want that like 30 minutes beforehand that we start recording. So it's like knowing that like, maybe that was something that she needed, that like, it's nice to have like time with the guest before you're recording.
I feel like that's a very specific type of personality that like, okay, let's just go with the flow, because I do feel like also on podcasts I see, and even in people in general, like they have to have a very scripted what to say, how to say it, and if the conversation deviates from there, then it's kind of like you feel the little freak out, even though it's edited, you feel the freak out.
Yeah, so to give like an actual example with like the men, because we had men and women on the Talk to a podcast, and so Josh Richards is coming on, and I'm preparing the topics for Haley, and we're like going over it before, because I want to hear what she's interested about beforehand, obviously. And she's like, "What do you talk to? Like, we like about sports? Like, like that was it. Like, boy equals sports.
Sports. It makes sense though.
When in doubt, though, she taught me
go.
that. Honestly, I use that now. I'm like, I think if I'm like, I don't know what to say to a man, I literally just go sports.
You wrap up Talk to a, the podcast, finishes. You finish your time there. When you look back, what is, maybe not like necessarily a moment, maybe just like a feeling, an experience that you can say really defined your time there? Like maybe your friendship with the team, your friendship with Haley, like what do you feel defined your time there?
I honestly feel like it was the audience. Like they sort of kept me going afterwards, like the impact on the audience, like the cultural shift that it left. Like I think that's what sticks with me the most, and I think the capability to give someone that goes viral for something that they don't have control over or necessarily feel is representative of them or want to get behind, and I can help them build something much bigger beyond that. And like the proof is in like what's left behind with like the people.
That's beautiful. That is, I don't know, I feel like I would be so fulfilled if I was you, to like see that I grew something so big and that it had such an impact. Because I remember when the show was out and people were talking about it, the narrative about Haley completely changed. She went from being this blonde girl, whatever, that went viral for making a sexual comment, to she's like actually good at talking in long form, which I feel like not everybody is,
Yeah, they could see her wittiness carried on more than a 60-second clip, It was like she's one of the most quick-witted people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, and I feel like changing that narrative, not that it was hard, because like obviously like people didn't know her, but like you being a part of it and like seeing
it was hard.
Really?
It was hard, growing more of her female audience, or just people that took her seriously, that didn't see just that video.
You wrap up Talk to a. You now move on to Shopify's podcast.
Well, so some real tea, I was doing it all at the same time.
Oh. Damn.
I've been doing it all at the same time.
Jesus.
Yeah. I know, a moment for me.
So I know you were traveling. I'm like, are you okay? Like, how are you keeping it together? I feel like I am trying to balance like 9 to 5 content creation in college. I'm like about to lose it, actually. I cannot imagine having two jobs because it's essentially what it is.
Yeah, so I produce a lot of shows at the same time. And when you mentioned team, I actually wanted to give a shout. I'm building my team at the moment, my
Okay.
Gogo Studios team, and that's been really pivotal. But I think it took balancing everything at once to learn that it was time for me to delegate. Because I was doing a lot. I mean, we were probably traveling every like 2 weeks minimum to keep episodes topical. And then with Shopify, we now film videos like once or twice a quarter
Okay.
in Los Angeles or Toronto at the moment. So I was balancing it by scheduling things accordingly. Yeah, so I would say that presence, it's one of those things though, because it's hard. Like, I'm like, my life inspires my art. So I'm always working, but I love my work. So it's like, I'm probably going to leave here today with like amazing ideas for like new episodes and like just marketing strategies.
I feel like your job is very intriguing because it's definitely not the type of job that you see, on like a LinkedIn post and you just
True.
apply and get it over. And I don't know about the people, I'm guessing yes, but I know at least I want to learn more about your job.
Mm-hmm.
You said you're what is that, like maybe like 7 shows you're producing right now at the same time around?
Probably like maybe like 4 or 5, but
Okay.
I mean soon it'll be 7, 8.
What does a day in your life look like? What does a day in the life of a podcast producer look like?
I try to stick to somewhat of a schedule because just like being self-employed and running my own business, it helps to have some structure. But at the same time, as dedicated as I am to my routine and my structure, I'm just as dedicated to like letting those go when needed. Like if I'm filming and traveling till 12 a.m., like I don't need to start work at 8:30 the next day. Like, it's not like everybody else. But with that being said, I start my day with my lovely boyfriend. We moved in together, and our cutie dog. So
Congrats.
thank you. I like to walk Odin from like 7:30, 7:45 until like 8:30, 8:45. Sometimes 9, like during the summer I could get away with that. So start work around like 8:39 because a lot of my clients are East Coast. So anyone out there knows, like, you wake up and you're 3 hours behind, or like you have just like a list of requests
right
already.
Yeah.
So I'll try to answer some emails like while I'm on that walk. I try to do my most like productive creative work happens, I would say, from like 10 to like 12:30. Like, I'm locked in.
Okay.
And then I like to take calls usually after that because I know like my productivity isn't as high, so I'm more likely to want to like brainstorm or like touch base on things, like go over stuff that requires meetings. Sometimes that's in person. And then I would say around like 3, 4, I get a little like squeamish. So that either means like getting an extra matcha and like doubling in on creative work, or like going outside. And then at nighttime, things that bring me peace. So whether that's a hot yoga class, cooking, talking on the phone to like a friend or someone in a different time zone or a family member, watching some reality TV show with my boyfriend, or now these days going to events and putting myself out there so I can meet amazing people like you. And then I would say like that's a work from home day. So then anywhere from like 2 to 10 days I'm on set. So that's usually in LA, New York, Toronto, depending. I would say consistently LA and Toronto. So when I'm in LA, it's like completely different on a set day.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a lot, but it sounds like fun.
Yeah, and I tried like on Fridays not to do meetings, so that like I can catch up, or like maybe it's cleaning my house, and like there's also like if my favorite like Real Housewives aired, like I'm taking an hour to like maybe do admin work and watch that. Like, I'm giving myself the freedom now to be like, if you don't respond in 15 minutes to this email, they're not gonna find someone better than you, so you can finish sweeping. But I wasn't always like that, so I used to be very rigid about like I need to wake up at 9 to 5, be sitting on my computer and working extremely hard.
But I feel like that's what is ingrained in our brains, and from like generations. It's like what people do, and like that's how you define success. It's like if you're not working 9 to 5,
and that's not where inspiration finds you. You can't always work like that.
Not at all. And I do feel like, at least me, so I do work a 9 to 5. I'm a paralegal at a law firm. Some days are a lot more stressful than others, and I struggle finding a good balance of this is work, this is like influencing whatever, which to me I also see it as a full-time job.
Yeah.
and this is my life and I am living my life, whether it's with my partner, whether it's going out with friends, like doing things for like networking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you try to balance it all? Because like I know you said you have a schedule, but do you feel like you have to make an actual like conscious effort of unplugging from your professional life?
I'll call myself out here. I schedule my life down to 15-minute increments.
Me too.
Almost every single day. Maybe with the weekends as an exception to like 45-minute increments. This isn't necessarily something I love or would recommend, but it's working for me right now, which is like everything is equal. So like in the same way that like I need to set 15 minutes down to answer emails, I need to set 15 minutes down to do stretching. Like my self-care is like the job too, which like maybe isn't the best relationship to have with it, but it's like, oh, my monthly acupuncture appointment, like in the same way that like my monthly client check-in, like those are just as important. Like I like prioritize things in the order of like what pays me the most, whether that's monetarily or like emotionally and like physically.
And I feel like if you let go of yourself, then eventually your job will also start trickling down, because
No,
if you're
I
not taking
physically
care of
can't.
yourself.
Hello, Gogo Studios.
Yeah.
Like, Gogo needs to be
And-
up and at 'em running.
And now you have a team. It's
Yeah, now I have like the most motivated, inspirational, like dedicated. I can't even speak more highly about this like team that I'm building and these young women and young men that are working for me and with me, and they motivate me to go get more opportunities and more money to bring to the table for them, which is a new experience, and it's been really really validating and also like refreshing.
But I also want to talk about, you mentioned you worked at Core Power. You have a meditation podcast. You talk about acupuncture. Well, definitely in the wellness space.
Yeah.
You obviously work in podcast, so it's like, makes sense that you wanted to start a podcast. But why the podcast that you do in the format that you do it? Why?
Yeah, this is a fun story too. So I was in my undergrad when COVID happened and hit, and so I got pretty fed up of online classes pretty quickly. And so I graduated a semester early and was fortunate enough to have some tuition money for my last semester that I could use for educational purposes only. And me being the creative genius I am was like, oh, well, I could get a lot of educational certifications in a lot of beautiful places. So I decided I loved yoga. It had been a very healing experience for me as like a practice, as like someone that had been a competitive dancer, that like I loved yoga as a practice, that it wasn't about getting to the final pose. Like yoga is about the journey of doing yoga, which was like the part I loved about dancing, like not the competition. It was like the act of the practice. And I was like, oh, that's what this whole thing is about. So it really spoke to me. I was like, oh, let me learn more about yoga, get a teacher certification. Like it'll be a great way to learn about it. No intentions of teaching yoga whatsoever. And I go to Costa Rica, have this amazing 200-hour yoga certification process to become a teacher. And I like to say that if yoga was a textbook, only 2 of the pages are about physical movements, which was, news to most Western white women practicing yoga. And so it really was essentially an entire philosophy, a lifestyle that really spoke to me, and I loved it, and I wanted to share what I was learning with my community, which was essentially my friends and family back in the States. And I was like, well, I don't want to teach online yoga classes. I just literally left the country to avoid online classes. That would be very hypocritical of me to ask people to come to my online yoga class. And for more context, how I was affording life after this course was that I was producing podcasts virtually, because I could do that only 2 hours ahead in Costa Rica, and everything was like remote. So I used that money to fund some of my travels, and I was like, oh, if I want to share these teachings and I'm making other people's podcasts, why don't I take my teachings and make a podcast, and then I'll learn and make mistakes on my own show that'll help with my clients, and then I'll be able to share my teachings without making people come to sit in a digital class. And so it was like perfect. I literally remember I was like sitting in a meditation. I was like, oh my God, go flow, the podcast. I literally like got up and like jumped and like ran and was like, this is so perfect. When I returned, it was actually really a calling from the audience to start teaching yoga classes in California, so in LA and SF, and I started doing Sunday Serenity, which is the last Sunday of every month, a yoga class. We're on a little pause hiatus right now, but that's like our regular offering. But yeah, it just was always something, movement that has always been healing to me, that it was finding like the best expression of that through yoga, and meditation and yoga are really one. Like, I think that meditation is really general. It's like, how do you want to meditate? Whether that's going on a walk, moving your body, like it's just like this repetitive practice and like dedication to the present moment, however you can express that.
And Gogo, to wrap up, because it's
Yeah.
been a pleasure to have you here, and I think everybody,
It's been so like rewarding for me.
I feel like everybody has also learned a lot from you, because we don't really get to see the behind the scenes of this. I mean, I know for me it's just me and my boyfriend, and like sometimes he helps, but for bigger productions, like we don't really hear the behind the scenes of that.
Yeah.
You've accomplished a lot, you're doing a lot. When you look at everything that you're working on, what is one thing that you are so proud that you were able to do, and what is one thing that you still feel like you are yet to do?
The proud one is an easy answer for me, because I reflect on it every day, like, and it's never lost on me, is like the like, I want to say it right. It's the, I view people's attention as such a gift, almost like a prayer, like it's such a practice that someone sits and gives me their time. So I guess from like an analytical perspective, like retention, like the idea that I'm able to retain the human attention, because to me, like, that's such a devoted time of somebody's, that I know watching something is really valuable in today's world, when there's so many options, that like the fact, it's not lost on me that people spend their time consuming content that I've created. So that's, I think, what makes me the most proud. And I think something I am yet to accomplish, the feeling like I'm done yet. Like, I just feel like there's so many stories that I want to shift culture with and share. And then I'd also really love to be on Forbes 30 Under 30 in like media and podcasting. Like, I think that that's just like, on like my list of things I'd like to check off, even though it's literally just a vanity metric. Again, it's more of the fact that the value of the attention that people pay to the things I've created is never lost on me.
One of my goals is also to be on Forbes 30 Under 30, and I am like,
that for us.
next year I need to log the F, and because I need to do it. And I feel
You
like I
will.
just haven't like fully leaned into that, because I'm like, I mean, realistically, why would I get on it? Like, for what reason would I get on it? So I feel like for what's left of the year, I'm figuring out why would I be on Forbes 30 Under 30, and then next year is I'm going to make it happen until
not?
it happens. And I know for you, you are amazing, and you can nominate yourself for Forbes 30 Under 30,
And everybody should.
and
You have to be your own number one fan.
yeah,
That's
and
also something I'm most proud of, is like, I have no fear because I have taste. And
I love that.
That's my
That's
favorite
going to
thing.
be what the episode is called. I have no fear because I have taste.
truly, and like that goes for like, it sort of sparked from like the AI conversation, but like, you should have no fear of really anything that's not life or death, because if you believe in your taste, like, that's one of one.
Yeah, and I'm a huge believer of like everything happens at the right reason, for the right reason, at the right time,
Exactly.
and that's it. Well, Gogo, thank you so much for coming to the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't followed her, all of her socials will be down below.
Thank you. I'd love to hear what you thought of this. I'm very open to feedback. I want to be the best guest possible, so let me know how I did. And if you aren't subscribed, you need to be, and send this episode to a friend or someone that's aspiring to
Maybe break into this
accomplish,
world.
yeah, one of their like goals. What it could just be like waking up tomorrow and going on a walk. Like this, I want people to listen to you, because I think it's very motivating to just have as like a resource to listen to you. Like, I loved the one I listened to on the way over here, Do It for the Plot. So listen to that one after this. I urge you.
And maybe we'll have you as a guest back, but then on a
love
different
that.
lens. Maybe we'll tell the message stories, because we didn't really get to those.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, girly pops. I will see you in the next one. Besitos. Bye.
Bye.